back, and the pier itself has been slated for construction, and renewal has occurred, or the idea of urban renewal has been applied to the area of the pier, has a historical corollary to the ways in which nature or environments have been conceptualized in this country for hundreds of years now. And that when we talk about environmental justice, we're usually talking about issues of class and race, and it's really important to think of how people who are queer and are also conceptualized as bad for business, as not capitalizable on, unless they're turned into a modified identity, on like the L word or queer as folk. And how important it is to draw lines of intersection between various struggles, environmental justice struggles and queer struggles for justice and equitable use of space that communities call their own. And so I guess I'd like to open it up to discussion. I hope I've given all enough information for a discussion.
I don't want to put you out there, but I know that you've written about this before, and because this was such a limited time in space to be talking about it, like, is there any way you could maybe share, email or put out somewhere what you've written about it, so that we can, or just more resources?
For sure. Yeah, no problem. I would love to.
I would just love to read more about this.
Well, if you all want to give me your emails, I can send you what I wrote on this topic that has a whole lot more information.
Very comfortable.
Hey, I thought, I'm sorry I missed the beginning, but I think it's really interesting that in the formal activist world, it's really hard to connect these two strains of activism, like EJ versus queer and other social justice. And I think that from the things you've been saying about gentrification of spaces, or just the need to kind of exploit and take over spaces, that's a really interesting way to connect them. And I wonder if we, or I, because I've been trying to think about it, but it's really hard, and I think the context that in the activist world that these two strains are moving, to find other things that connect them, even though I feel like they're totally connected because they're both about types of justice and exploitation issues. So I just thought that would be an interesting topic.
So yeah, I don't know. What I really get from sort of this discussion of these queer and environmental justice together is really sort of theme about cultural themes and cultural precedents, and the way that culture is constructed to allow to allow that we can even conceptualize space and environment as being gendered, and then looking at the values of that, so in terms of extrapolating that to other, drawing connections between other struggles, really trying to we're looking for cultural precedents, looking for constructions that we can link between all these different struggles, the way that they're constructed.
So this might sound kind of not negative, but maybe kind of against what we're talking about today I don't think it's a bad way. But so we're talking about this idea as nature as kind of a queer entity, but I wonder if that is kind of part of why in Western culture and American culture there isn't the kind of support of the environment and the support of environmental issues that there could be. And I just, one of the ways that I kind of see this is, I used to work in Springfield, and there's no grocery stores. It's like convenience stores and like Kennedy Fried Chicken, and there's no green space, it's just gravel, and they're starting this program with youth where they're, and this is actually more happening in Holyoke, where they're actually creating community gardens and things like that. But I wonder if, because there's this conception of like being this like tree hugger hippie, it doesn't translate, and it kind of, it's got this like negative view by people who aren't queer, you know, and who aren't kind of outside of that norm, because it's seen as this soft, feminine thing, like, oh, you want to be a farmer, like that's, and it's not accessible. It's not as accessible, and I just wonder, I obviously, I identify as queer, and well, I'm not obviously identify as queer, but I identify as queer. Like, I think queer identities are a really great thing, and I think that seeing nature as a queer entity is good, but I also wonder if it's also limiting in
For sure.
in that accessibility.
I definitely
So-
agree with that, and I guess what I'm saying is that it wasn't like queer activists or like queer theorists who decided that nature was like queer.
No, and I'm not saying
You know,
that
like-
either, but I'm wondering if trying to remove that conception of it, and
And
that's
say that it's
complicated.
neutral, that
but-
it's, I mean, I absolutely agree. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that we should be
I think
gendering or
that kind of-
sexualizing nature.
Right.
And I think it has a lot to do with the way that with the way that our culture commits a lot of violence towards nature and towards animals and towards access to nature for a lot of people.
But at the same time, like it's like, oh, we need to remove the queerness because that makes it okay. So it's kind of trying to strike a balance of like
For sure.
being okay with that, but also getting that mass interest in, you know, not killing all of us through destruction of the environment.
Yeah. I don't know your name, but
Me, Jules.
hi, Jules.
Hey. So going off what both of you were saying, and specifically you with Springfield, I guess, and
In Holyoke.
yeah, and saying that how the environment is portrayed there contributes to the queer theory. I think that's kind of what you were saying, and I want to take it a step further to say that just seeing the environment as something separate from us makes it queer, whatever queer is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in so many cultures, the environment is part of you, and your balance with the environment is the single most important part of life. And to even see the environment as not as separate, as different, makes it queer. And if we want to change that, then we would have to change our whole culture.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yay!